hello, and welcome to Talking Golf with Gary. This week, the dynamic Gary will introduce you to all kinds of topics pertinent to this past week of golf. He'll give you some tidbits of information as what's coming up and take you on a tour around the world for all of the golfing highlights. Sit back and enjoy Talking Golf with Gary.
And hello and welcome to another edition of Talking Golf with Gary. It is episode number 266. Got a terrific guest on this week, and let's get right to the recap so we can get to him. Dustin Johnson struggled early and caught a good break from behind a tree and then breezed to his sixth World Golf Championship in Mexico City on Sunday by closing with a 5-under 66 for a 5-shot victory over Rory McIlroy. Johnson won for the 20th time on his PGA Tour career. Paul Casey shot a 65, Ian Poulter 68, and Kiradech Afabonrad also shot a 68 and tied for third, though they were 10 shots behind. Tiger Woods got his first top 10 of the year, but it wasn't all that great. He struggled on the greens of the golf course. They were POA greens and had a tough time putting on those. Over the last two rounds, Woods hit 31 out of 36 greens in regulation and only had scores of 70 and 69 to show for it. The best round of the day belonged to Justin Thomas, who closed with a 62 before heading off to the Florida swing to defend at the Honda Classic. On the other event on the PGA Tour, the other tournament for the rest of the guys, Martin Traynor, who won twice on the Web.com Tour in 2018, shot a 5-under par 67 Sunday to win the Puerto Rico Open by 3 shots. It is his first victory on the PGA Tour. He had 230 text messages waiting for him after his round completed and put in a quick call to his mother before picking up the trophy and settling in as a PGA Tour winner. With the win, Traynor earned 300 FedEx Cup points and will be exempt into the Players' Championship along with the Century Tournament of Champions. Daniel Berger fired a 6-under par 66 Sunday to move into a tie for second with 3 other golfers as he makes a return from an injured wrist. Berger said he's finally feeling healthy and will be playing the next 4 events. He's only played 3 times since October and added the Puerto Rico Open to his schedule because he wanted to get his season kicked into high gear. He finished second in a tie with Johnson Wagner and third-round leader Aaron Baddeley and Roger Sloan, whose tied for second result was his best ever finish on the PGA Tour. No action on the Champions Tour and the European Tour combined for the World Golf Championship. So we have the LPGA was in action, and Amy Yang won the LPGA Thailand for the third time after holding off Minjee Lee by 1 stroke on Sunday. What an exciting finish this was. Yang from South Korea carded a final round 65 and a 22 under par at Siam Country Club's Pattaya Old Course for her 4th overall LPGA Tour win. Despite lightning stopping play for 50 minutes and a rain delay later in the round, Yang emerged from a 3-way tie with Lee and Carlota Ciganda with a birdie from the fringe of the green on the par 3 16th to regain the lead at 21 under. With Ciganda already signing off at 20 under, Lee on the 18th had the chance to force a playoff. She made a 14-foot eagle putt. She didn't. She had to settle for a birdie to finish with a 66 at 21 under. Ciganda finished at 20 under after having eagled the par 5 first and the par 4 15th. She shot a 63 on Sunday, matching Yoon Hee Ji's score from Thursday as the lowest of the event. And that's the recap of all the action on the tours this week. A little slight on the action, but they'll all be back next week, and we'll have more on that a little bit later on the show. But let's take a quick break and be back with my special guest right after. Let's see, where are we here? There we go. Right after this.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for interesting baseball talk, opinions, and history.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for barbecue recipes, tips, and interviews from the world of barbecue. If you like baseball and if you like barbecue, then tune in to Baseball and BBQ. Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and BaseballTalkRadio.com.
Joining me tonight is Josh Babbitt. He is the co-founder, co-owner of the Hackers Paradise and the publisher of THP Media. It is probably one, if not the largest online golf communities out there on the internet. So you should all go check it out. And Josh, welcome to Talking Golf with Gary.
Thanks, Gary. I'm happy to be here.
So tell me, Josh, how did you get started playing golf in way back when you were a babe?
Well, that's many, many decades ago, sadly. But I started playing because my friends started playing and took it up. And then the honest truth is I took about a decade off because I focused on my career before getting into the golf industry, and came back, still have a passion for it. Within the golf industry, have more of a passion for it now than I've ever had.
And for those of those 2 or 3 people out there that don't know what the Hackers Paradise is, what is THP, and where did the idea come from? How did you get it started, and all of that kind of stuff?
I'll give you the fairly short version so your listeners aren't bored to death.
It's okay. We have some time.
THP is the letters standing for the Hackers Paradise, which is a website, social media, online golf forum, everything kind of all rolled in one. We do content, we do contests, we host events nationally with companies. It's really an all-in-one place for tens of thousands of golfers to chat every single month. The idea came back in 2008, and my now wife, who founded this with me and is the owner, I was looking online for golf clubs for her, and I'd never been a forum guy, and this is kind of scary to say. I'd never really been on a forum much until we started our own, and I looked around, and there's some people that were doing it extremely well. I'll give a shout out to Richard Audi and the guys at Golf WRX. They do a great job with what they do, but that's more of a hardcore tour kind of thing, and we wanted to do something a little different, more of a lifestyle thing. And I just said, I had sold a previous company, and I said, I think I could make this widget, so to speak, different and have some fun with it. And here we are almost 11 years later, traveling around the country, meeting golfers, putting equipment in their hands, and having some fun with it.
And that's it. It is amazing looking at the website and all of the testing that you do now, and that's just a small part of it. You have, as we've said, the media. You have THP TV, which has different programming on it, and THP Radio, as well as the forum. How did it evolve to the level that it's at now with getting the equipment? Imagine it's very difficult. I guess it's just consistency and persistence, I should say, with the manufacturers to get the equipment. How did that all come about?
It's kind of a unique story. You're right. It is a consistency, and I'm not an equipment writer. I was at the beginning, but we have people more talented than that doing that for us now. I do test all the equipment that comes out, and shout out to Foresight for the GC Quad, which to me is the best piece of equipment out there for testing equipment and data and gathering that. But when we started, we wanted to be different, and we didn't go to these equipment companies and say we have 1 million hits, we're bordering on Google traffic. We were honest. We told them what we had. We told them that we had growth plans, and we went to them. It wasn't a blank email that we sent out to all these companies saying, look at us, let me pound our chest, we want to talk to you. We got on a plane and flew to them and met with them.
Yeah.
And we've made some great friends in this industry, or people that I call friends. And the industry is small, so they change from company to company at times.
Right.
And you further that relationship. Our traffic was always what it was, and then we broke a couple of pretty big stories, and at that time became a little more noticed. And which is funny, because when you look back at it now, that those stories that set records on our traffic for that day are really a bump in the road or a blip in the radar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not that doesn't seem that important now, but at the time it was huge.
Right. And we were, I'm not going to say trendsetters, because that's not fair to the other people who do incredible stuff, but we were one of the first people to start putting video out there of golfers talking about equipment, interviews with R&D experts and things like that. That was going on all the way back in 2008 for us, and now it's commonplace. Now, I'm not saying that as a look at us, we're the best, because we're not. But we have stayed consistent, and we've brought new ideas, and those new ideas oftentimes get spun off, and people and places do it even better than we do.
Well, I don't know about that, but you certainly do it quite well. And I've actually had Adam Fonseca on here. He actually was my first guest when I rebooted this podcast. I started this in 2008, and I went to 2014, and then took a 4-year hiatus on it, and retired from my regular job. I hit the golden age, so I retired and decided, I think I'll do the golf podcast again. So here I am back.
Well, that's fun. Adam is a proprietor of Golf Unfiltered, and we actually host his podcast on our podcast network that we call THP Radio. He does a good job with that podcast with great guests.
Mm-hmm. And I just recently saw him, as well as you, at on YouTube at the PGA show. What was the show like this year?
There's a lot of doom and gloom reporting out there about the PGA show and how it's shrinking and not as important as it used to be. And we actually thought this year was a fantastic PGA show.
Mm-hmm.
Kudos to them and Reed for setting up something that was fantastic. The companies with the booths. We had multiple returning companies in Bridgestone and Mizuno. We had Wilson move to the show floor with a really cool setup over on the range, the hitting area. Callaway with just a amazing booth this year, including interview portal with lighting so you could do videos and things like that. And Cobra with the speed as you walk through, tied in with Puma. It was a really good show this year, and one that we actually think might have been our favorite to go to in a long time.
Yeah, I don't know if the regular golfer, the average golfer, knows that how many of these companies are really connected to one another. You mentioned Cobra and Puma, and then Titleist has some ties, I think, with Adidas.
Titleist is actually now at least partially owned, or their parent company is partially owned by the same parent company that partially owns Fila.
Oh, okay.
Overseas.
Okay. Oh.
TaylorMade used to be owned by Adidas, but they sold that. Adidas sold that portion off, and now they're owned by KPS, a public entity group.
Uh-huh. Thank you. That's what I was thinking of. I guess TaylorMade was with Adidas, but it is a really a showcase for the industry, and like you said, there's a lot of doom and gloom, but there's been, even in the tech industry, they say those shows they used to have is not like it used to be, but you need somewhere to display your wares and really to show new innovations in the game.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the reporting that's about the show not being necessary has to do with release dates. If you go back even a decade and a half ago, the PGA show was the place where every company released their new equipment or new apparel and everything else. Well, with the internet and things changing, that's not really the case anymore. We have January releases, we have spring releases, we have fall releases, we have Christmas releases. This year, Callaway launched a large lineup filled with incredible equipment right before PGA show, a few weeks before. January 4th, I believe it was. So that part, there's not that, hey, I got to pay attention to the PGA show because that's all the new equipment coming out thing that kind of holds over it. But it's still a place where you can get most of the golf media and most of the golf companies together to, in some ways, collaborate. Now, they're not collaborating necessarily together, but there is a collaboration of sorts that kind of mimics no other industry that I've seen. I've worked with a lot of different industry spaces, and I've said this before throughout social media. The golf industry is filled with 95 or 6, maybe even 99% genuinely good people. And that's something that we cherish and why we do it every day and why we work hard to do it. You're not going to find that in a lot of different places.
And did you see anything this year, any new innovations, any new gadgets that caught your eye and think that, well, the average golfer should be looking to pick up something like this?
Yeah, a lot. This year, I would say more than any other year, at least since I've been closely tied with the equipment industry, speed is there. The drivers that have come out this year are tremendous. And most golfers, even playing a club that's 2 or 3 years old, can go get fit for a current model and really, really see a difference. Another area that I thought was really, really interesting was Odyssey with their new Stroke Lab putters. They are a tremendous story of rebalancing weight and making it better, is the best way to say it, for the golfer. That's something that really jumped out. Mizuno being back and showcasing a new golf ball, which they haven't had in the U.S. or North America in a long time, was something that was rather interesting. Lots of really good stories, and it was a really fun place to be.
Yeah, there is a lot of buzz about the Odyssey Stroke Lab putters, and it's, from what I've heard, it's all been positive, as well as the new Callaway golf ball ERC.
Yeah, the ERC is rather interesting because it's a golf ball with lines on it, and when if you don't understand the story, it looks like somebody just put 3 lines on a golf ball. And there's really some serious science behind it with the thickness of the lines and the color of the lines. And I'm one of those guys, and I've said it before. When they released the Truvis ball, I said, no way, that's not for me, and I ended up loving it. And this one, we've only used it for a single round of golf so far, so it did get involved with our Range Days video series testing. We used that ball on all the drivers we tested, but for my personal self, I've used it for 1 round, and I actually found myself using the alignment off the tee as well as on the green, something I never thought I would do, and I kind of really liked it. I didn't want to like it, but I really liked it.
Well, that's the funny thing, that somebody comes up with an idea and they use it, and then for a specific purpose, and then before you know it, other people are finding different uses for it. It's quite an interesting thing when you think about it. And as you say, the science behind that with the whole aircraft carry is based on is really quite interesting.
Yeah, I was pretty blown away by it. Well, like I said, I saw the preview of it back in, I want to say, August, and I walked away with, okay, neat, it's 3 lines. But the entire golf ball is I want to say in some ways a different category, where it's got everything that a premium ball has with a little bit of a hybrid cover. Then you add this. The good thing is if you like the ball but don't like the lines, you can hide them because it's only on half the ball. So that part's rather interesting. And there's a lot of great golf balls out there, but watching what Callaway's done in that golf ball division or segment has been really interesting over the last, let's say, 5 years, maybe 6 years since the Chrome Soft line has come out.
And there's such a lot of competition with the Titleist Pro V1 and the Pro V1X, and even now with the different brands, the Snell and the Vice, and it's just amazing. It can get you crazy though, in a way too, with the different amount of balls.
It can, and I really think that there's something to ball fitting personally, and I was glad to see for a brand like Bridgestone, which has had its, I will say, dip in the marketplace, so to speak, the last few years to bring ball fitting back and show what they're capable of doing. But there's great brands out there. Titleist is a market leader. They have a quality product. Callaway's making innovation using graphene and doing that. Srixon, the Z-Star XV might be one of the fastest balls we've tested for certain swings, I should say. TaylorMade with the TP5 and TP5X that became very popular last year. And then, of course, you do have the direct-to-consumer model, like you said, the Snell device, and a brand like Cut Golf, which is selling a four-piece urethane ball for under $20.
Wow.
There's a lot of competition out there, and I think that's good. I know that people always say, well, there's too many choices. I actually think you're right. It could be overwhelming, but at the end of the day, it's good for the golfer to have those choices rather than have the choices made for you. And that goes back to something we do on THP a little differently. I'm not a big fan of lists. I'm not a big fan of doing testing and telling a golfer what's best. First of all, I don't think that's fair to brands because testing without a robot is interesting. It's correct. We don't use a robot, but I don't think it's fair to say this is best over that. I think that should be up to the golfer. Instead, we want to present facts, educate them on why things are happening, and then let them decide. There's a lot of things that would be that are innovative, that are indisputable. Stroke Lab is one. Every test I've seen, independent or in-house, has said that rebalances the putter. Will somebody like it? Maybe, maybe not. But it does work. The supercomputer that Callaway used in the Epic Flash, it works.
Right.
It's, whether that makes a better driver, that's going to be up to the person, but it works. And the numbers are really good. The Cobra King F9 driver is aerodynamic. It's fast. It works. That's why when you see brands like Club Champion and things like that come up with fitting, it's important to know that those options exist. Now, I should be the first person to say not everybody has to get fit. I think it's recommended, but there are people who just don't like to hit indoors or don't want to go through that. And then the choices are there, and we hope places like our website and others like it help educate them to make the best purchase they can.
Golf is such an expensive game. Does that hurt the game, in your opinion, at all? And is there a way to lower the cost? I mean, I know, now as I said, I retired being on a fixed income. I'm looking at more municipal courses, and I'm losing weight now and getting back into golf, and I want to walk again. And one of the main reasons I want to really walk the course is, to be honest, is because it's cheaper. I can play more often at one course than I can renting a cart. It's so expensive. The cost of equipment is skyrocketing. Is there anything they can do to bring that down and still give us the technology involved?
I can make the case that golf is both expensive and inexpensive.
Okay.
So I'll look at it like this. Back in the early 90s, 80s, drivers were $399, $449, things like that. So if you look at inflation, the price of golf clubs hasn't changed that much. The game of golf is more accessible than ever with municipal courses, with public offerings and things like that. So that part is there. Now, I'm not going to be here to say that golf is cheap, but it's something that I think is in some ways aspirational as a game. Not everybody has 4 to 4.5 to 5 hours to play frequently, so there is that part of it. But I would also say that, and this is a conversation that's more geared towards the political segment, but if we want wages to go up, we want help to go up, we want everything to go up for everybody, costs go up with that. There's no way to avoid that. So if a golf course, let's say, that has had staff that was, I'm not going to say minimum wage, but less than $15 an hour, let's say, as an employee, and maybe they made tips, maybe they didn't, or maybe it was a program to work towards something better. If you have to all of a sudden pay those wages along with so many other costs that go into it, the cost of the game is going to go up.
Right.
The same thing with manufacturing. If you look at a driver now and you look at the amount of pieces that are going into a product and the amount of materials that are going into a product, absolutely the cost of drivers is going to go up. With that said, there are bargains to be had. You know, the Touredge Exotics EXS driver at $299 is a fantastic product. You're not sacrificing a ton of technology. It's got a composite crown. It's got movable weight. It comes with a good shaft. It's a fantastic product, and it comes in at $299, and it's brand new this year. If you want to go less than that, again, Touredge with the HL3, the Hot Launch 3 set, I think it's $199 for an adjustable driver. You could also say, hey, well, I'm going to buy one, maybe 2 years out. And 2 years ago, we had the Callaway Epic, which is a fantastic product and in some ways a game-changing product. Cobra's made fantastic drivers. They all have for a couple of years. So those things are an example of you can do this cheaper or you can do this more expensive. It's a game that once you have in your blood and have a passion for, it's hard to get away from, though.
Yeah. And I do notice that a lot of I mean I asked the question because I noticed a lot of the guys that either I play with or that I see on the golf courses don't have the shiny new golf clubs, and some guys are playing things. I got a friend that's still using an actual wooden driver, so it just I wonder sometimes, where are they selling these things that they can keep coming up with this technology and putting out new product every other year or every year, and yet I'm not seeing it necessarily where I play. Now that doesn't mean anything at all. You know, I'm playing, as I say, municipal courses, and you don't see it, but you do still see a lot of old equipment out there, and even online you can look, and there's a lot of old good equipment for sale.
I would say that's it. In some ways, that's two different questions. The first being, how do they put out this stuff? If who's buying it?
Right.
Well, a lot of that is inventory management, and I always use this example, and some people say it works, some people doesn't. If a company makes 100,000 drivers, and I'm making arbitrary numbers up right now, and they sell 60,000, and then they come out with another driver and make another 100,000, and they sell, let's say, 80,000. That's still, between those 2 years, 60,000 drivers that went unsold. However, if a company comes out and makes 50,000 new drivers and sells all 50,000,
right,
what should you ask the company to do? Should you ask them reorder that driver or come out with the next thing when you know technology's ready? So I think inventory management is key for these companies. If they don't do a good job of it, we end up in a place that, and I'm not going to single out TaylorMade completely, but that was happening a decade ago, and it did hurt some of the retail stores, or at least Dick's will have you believe. But I think that with good inventory management and good marketing, and I do believe that some golf marketing is stale, I think that it's there. I'll be the first to say, if somebody's using a product that's 10 years old, and we're just talking 10 years, that's the R7s of the world. Those are not terrible products. In fact, they're very good products. They're leaving a lot of performance on the table. A lot.
Yeah.
And I'll say, if somebody's using a wooden driver, and we actually did a test recently with a Wilson Whale driver, and it was wooden. It had a graphite shaft, but it was still a wooden persimmon head. And the difference in distance was something like 31 yards. So I don't know about you, but that's the difference in hitting a 6-iron and a 9-iron into a green, and I'd much rather have the 9-iron.
Well, he still beats me. But that's a whole other different story. I need a lot of work on my game. So.
Well, hopefully with more spare time, you'll be able to do that.
Yeah. And a lot of companies, you mentioned TaylorMade, but there are a lot of them that have ebb and flow. I mean, Wilson for years was one of the top brands, and then they practically disappeared, and now they're slowly making a comeback.
I always use the term that despite the golfer not understanding a lot of the technology, and the companies and media outlets have been have done an amazing job as of late of making education a little more clear.
Mm-hmm.
But the golfer's not stupid enough that if you put out bad equipment, they don't notice. And if they're not in the right places, they're not gonna notice. Wilson, and I'll use Callaway as an example, for up until 7 years ago, let's say, maybe even 6 years ago, they were not doing as well. I mean, they made the revenue is about half of what it is now. So there is that. Wilson is putting out tremendous equipment right now, and they are in some ways unnoticed still. I think the TV show does a great job to segment and show how good that brand can be. The Cortex driver is fantastic. If you haven't been able to try it, I urge people to go try it. They just had a new line come out, the Wilson Staff D7, which, going back to that price point talk, is less expensive, and our testing shows it's a really good product. The driver and fairways and irons all do extremely well, super forgiving, great ball flight. So they're another brand that they hit 2 different price points. We think that's fantastic, and they are a brand on the rise.
Did they I mean, they used to have big names. I think Billy Casper was with Wilson back in the day, and
John Daly,
and other big names. Did they go more for how can I put this nicely? A box store set mentality? Did they go more for that kind of thing and get away from the individual club making, or is that just my perception?
I think it's a mix. I think there's reality to that and perception. You know, they segmented their brand between Wilson and Wilson Staff. Wilson being available in big box stores, Wilson Staff being a performance leader, and that went well. They also had changes in ownership and in management. If it were me, I would say that the Wilson Staff line has continued to be pretty darn good, but they don't have a large stable of golfers. I would point to the ones they have doing pretty well, like Gary Woodland as of late. But I do think that companies, there is an ebb and flow, and companies do lose their way a little bit. I mean, to think that just 3 or 4 years ago, TaylorMade had like 100 drivers in play some weeks, 80 drivers in play, 70 drivers in play. And now if you look at their story, they still have a lot of drivers in play, but if you look at their story, it's really about 5 main guys that are top golfers. So I think that there's a big, definite change there in the mentality of sponsorship in some ways. But Wilson's had many changes. Their marketing team, the driver versus driver, people can knock it all they want. It's a fantastic idea, and it brought a brand at least to the forefront. Now, I'll be the first to say I thought season 1 wasn't great from an interesting standpoint of tuning in. I tuned in because I liked the people there. I thought season 2 was excellent. I thought it was a really good TV show. We did one of our THP events shortly after that, before the driver was released, where a bunch of our forum members got to go hit the driver in Scottsdale and play some golf with the president of the company, director of marketing, and the team there. And they do a great job. They also do a great job on social media, and there's a young man there by the name of Corey Holloway who is fantastic at putting out content and getting things together, and I think that that's been a fun follow the last 2 to 3 years as they've really hit their stride.
And well, you mentioned the driver versus driver and driver versus driver too. I think, as you said, it's a great marketing tool because it's all advertising, you know, and it's because let's face it, the people watching the Golf Channel are really more of the hardcore, if you will. You know, you're not getting your casual. Well, you might. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting myself all balled up. See, that's what happens when you get old.
Well, I'm already there, sadly, but I would say that the Golf Channel watcher is, I would say, despite outside of tournament time, I would say it skews to a slightly older and slightly more affluent demographic. I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. It's not necessarily a good thing either. I'm just saying that that would be if I'm guessing. I don't have their demographic numbers in front of me, but if I'm guessing, I would say that's what it is. I also think that it is pretty heavy in the Sun Belt region. which is a very good market for Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they've put out some really good products as of late. Now it's about getting them in the hands of the right people. I read this study recently that a person goes into a golf store and hits 3.5 drivers. Now, obviously, you can't hit half driver, but that's the idea. So if you were going to be one of those, you've got to knock off some pretty big names marketing-wise to do so. And that show does that, at least for the time period in which the drivers launched. There's really good brands out there. I mean, the other problem is where they're located. You know, you have to find these clubs in stores.
Mm-hmm.
I think PGA Superstore does an okay job, at least, of having a lot of clubs. I think Worldwide Golf, which is, you know, Roger Dunn, Edwin Watts, Vans,
Right.
and a few others, does a fantastic job of having lots of different brands, and it lets people choose. But if you're walking into a Dick's or the former Sports Authority or the former Golfsmith, you really only had a few brands to choose from, and that really limited the field. I mean, Dick's Sporting Goods now it seems is 50% house brands, and if somebody's walking in there, they see Tommy Armour, odds are they're thinking of the old Tommy Armour 845 irons that
Right.
everybody loved, when that's so far gone, and this is a brand that's owned by Dick's Sporting Goods.
Right, and Top Flight as well now is
Yes.
a Dick's Sporting Goods house brand.
Among quite a few others. So, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't have a problem with house brands, but if we are in, let's say, an R&D arms race, and you have a company spending $30 million, $40 million, $20 million, let's say $5 million in research and development each year,
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you for a fact Dick's Sporting Goods isn't.
Though the Tommy Armour, the latest, got decent reviews. Did you guys hit those clubs?
I did, and I don't know where those reviews came from. It was a fine product. There's nothing wrong with the product inherently.
But yeah,
There's better products out there.
right, and I think they do serve a purpose. The Dick's Sporting Goods of the world. I mean, if somebody's coming along and they want to just get started in the game, you know, it's a good place to start. Let's just put it that way.
I agree. I definitely agree. I wish that they still had their more knowledgeable PGA professionals in those stores, but I understand that financing matters. And listen, Dick's Sporting Goods, I believe, still sells more golf equipment with their brands than any place else in the world. So they're still an influential place. I just wish they had a place for choices.
I have to tell you that years ago I had a set of Spalding clubs that I absolutely loved, and over the years they've gone.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of them. Ram, McGregor,
Yeah,
Spalding.
yeah.
You know, the lists are long, and I'm not one of those. Maybe it's cold-hearted. I'm not a big reminiscing guy. I played Tommy Armours. I played Titleist DCIs. I mean, the list. It turns out the same guy made all those clubs, or at least designed them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that ingenuity, good marketing, and great leadership wins. And when you get those things together, you end up in a situation that is really powerful and can be great for the consumer.
Right, without a doubt. Let's get back to talk about the THP a little bit. When you got started, as you said, you went to these companies and got in. Was it difficult to get into events in the beginning? Was it difficult to get recognized as a media, as it were?
I'll say yes and no. Yes, from the standpoint of nobody knew who we were. No, from the standpoint that we made a pretty considerable investment to make sure that we weren't just walking in there with, back then iPhone was just starting and things like that, with a phone camera and saying,
right.
Or a pocket camera saying, hey, look, we're going to take some pictures. We made an investment into ourselves and into the future. And, it was dicey there for a bit, but we were careful. So from the aspect of getting into events, no, that's never been a problem for us. From the aspect of meeting these companies, we made sure that we were in front of them. We wanted them to understand what our growth was going to be, or at least potential, and that we were going to do it the right way, an honest way. And in golf, I know we hear it a lot from different bloggers and website owners and things like that, that companies want to dictate the message. And I can say, at least for us, in 11 years of doing this, I've never once, maybe once, but that company's not around anymore, never had a company say, we want you to write this. We want you to do this. We want you to do that. We need you to change this. We've never had it happen. And I don't know if that's a testament to the people in golf. It's a testament to our style. I don't know the answer to that, but we've been honest with them. They've been honest with us. They provide information. We provide information. We test that information and see if it works. And I know that people talk about that, and we see it throughout social media, but it hasn't been an impact to us. So I don't think it's been a real problem as much as it's being portrayed. I think some people like to stir the pot a little bit, and that's the reason that it's gone this way.
And you got answers whenever you approach these people. You got appointments and everything. It's fairly simple.
I don't want to say it's simple.
Well, yeah,
I know what you mean, though. I think that there's the right way to do things business wise, and we took approach rather than reach out and say, "Hey, we're going to do a review. We want your equipment." That to me is not the right way to do things.
Right.
We didn't demand equipment. We didn't make up traffic numbers. We were just honest with people, and we went to them and got on a plane and flew out our own money. Those are things that I think make a difference. I think everybody thinks they can do it until they actually do it. The goal to me is sharing information and doing it factually. And we can try to do that to the best of our abilities. We make mistakes. Everybody does. So for us, there was less resistance maybe than some others had, because we took a path of, we didn't try to take the path of least resistance, which I see a lot. That's what I would think is a wall that some people kind of run into.
Yeah, and sometimes people do think it's simple. Even with the podcast, people will say, "Oh, you should just tell them you want equipment." And I said, "Well, it's not. I live in the Northeast, so this is not a good time. It's very difficult to test equipment if you want to test it outside, and B, sometimes trying to find the right guy to talk to is very difficult as well."
It can be. And, one of the things that I've really enjoyed as of late are these companies have communication people that are excellent. And maybe they're excellent with me or us, I should say, because of the size we are. But there's people at each company that's their job, is to make sure you get back. And if you give a reasonable amount of time, 24, 48 hours, they pretty much always get back to me.
Right.
And always have throughout this entire process. So for us, I think that resistance hasn't been met, but I was never a send us your equipment, we'll write a review thing. In fact, I think that's in some ways overblown. I think the amount of work being put in on some of these reviews where they're demanding equipment can be accomplished in a hitting bay at Dick's Sporting Goods.
Right.
So, we always offered to return everything. We always offered to repurpose it for a contest, to give it to somebody else to test out and write a review. I think there's the right and wrong way to do things, but that's not me with some ethics, moral standard. That's me thinking that's the way I would want to do business if I was on the other side. Golf equipment, I know it's viewed as the big bad monster, these big companies, and that the equipment must cost them nothing. It's still expensive.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and as you said, the research and development alone is expensive.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. And these companies are spending millions and millions of dollars on research and development. I mean, the numbers are staggering if people knew, and I hope these companies start sharing that information, but I don't know if that'll lead to that. But millions and millions of dollars are spent on material research and development and things like that.
Now, you mentioned also that the THP events. What have you got scheduled for this year?
Oh, that list is long. The THP events platform came from a rather unique way. When you're not a forum frequenter, and social media was in its infancy in some ways when we started, it's a rude awakening with how mean some people are online, not just to us, just in general to each other. The keyboard warrior, so to speak, comes out when it's really easy to type mean things on the World Wide Web. So we said if we put together these amazing events that people want to go to, they're going to be less of a jerk to somebody because they might meet them on the range sometime.
Right.
And that has blossomed into creating what we think is the greatest series of events ever, culminating with something we have the granddaddy at the end with that one's done with Callaway. But to give you an example of an event we have, I'll use two examples. One, we have the first event of this year coming up with Cobra Golf. It's called the Morgan Cup, and it is a Ryder Cup style event, 8 golfers on each team, 2 teams, and every single participant gets a full bag of clubs, apparel scripting, footwear, headwear, and then they are going to play alongside somebody from research and development, one of the senior VPs from Cobra Golf, and that's what the events are about. So, and they're going to do it at one of the most amazing private courses on basically an island that people would ever see. So we're trying to this is not, our THP events are not about getting a bunch of guys together. We think there's a wonderful place for that, and that's a great tool because golf is such a social game.
Mm-hmm.
Our events are creating the impossible and giving a chance for golfers to experience something that they're just never going to get anywhere else.
And they go throughout the country. You travel?
Yes. The first one is in Defusky, South Carolina, which is a small little island. We'll have them in California. We'll be in Las Vegas in April with Strixon. That's going to be a fun one. We'll be in New England this year with Budget Golf. We're all over the country.
Well, and if people want to know, they can check the website to see where the events are going to be and if they're going to come to your area.
That's exactly right. And obviously spots are very limited when giving away full bags of equipment, so you got to sign up. And
I would imagine.
Hope you get your name called, and we'll see what happens. But we have newcomers in just about every event that we've ever done. So it's always a great time, and it's a great chance to meet golfers that share the same passion, as well as get some great equipment and play golf with some of the brightest minds in the industry.
So what's new on the website and for the company? What are you looking to do that's new and different this year, and down the line, adding any new shows, any things along that lines at all?
Sure. We launched a new series actually today, was the first episode, called Range Days, where a staff writer and myself test out golf equipment and analyze that data in a video format. But instead of just saying these are the averages or this is what's been, we explain, and people can see the first episode that's up now, which is the Ping G400 from last year versus the G410 Plus from this year. And we explain why it's happening in very layman's terms. So if something is spinning too much or not going as fast, we're going to break all that down and explain it for people to understand. So when they go to test golf equipment out, they can see, hey, you know what? This all makes sense to me. Now I get it. Now I get why I'm going too high or too low or too much spin or not enough distance. We break it down completely, and they can find that on our website. They can find it on our YouTube channel at THP Golf or any of our social accounts that are all THP Golf.
And I think, did you put out an introduction to that? Was that live? Because I recall...
We did a preview behind-the-scenes show that was live a couple of weeks ago that kind of gave an idea of what people were going to see, but it was more about being a preview and behind-the-scenes of showing what's going to come. And episode 1 actually hit just now when this is being recorded. So I think people will enjoy it. And based on the early feedback since this morning already, people have enjoyed it so far. And we enjoyed doing it. And Dan Edwards, the staff writer who's part of it with me, fantastic golfer and puts on quite a show with the golf swing.
And I saw the preview show. It was very interesting, and I can't wait to see the first episode. I'll go check that out today. And Josh, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on today and to talk golf with us.
No problem. Anytime. I'm happy to do it, and we'll have to catch up again.
All right. Josh Babbitt, The Hacker's Paradise. Go check it out. What's the website? hackersparadise.com?
www.thehackersparadise.com, And all social channels are THP Golf.
Terrific. Thank you so much. And I'll be back right after this.
Sponsor an ad on the podcast. Support our show and let people know about your business. Email us today.
516-362-0443. That is the Talking Golf hotline. If you've got a question, a comment, or want to leave a voicemail, say hi. That's the number to call, 516-362-0443. Or if you'd like to leave an email, you can email the show at talkinggolf@gmail.com.
Now it's time to do the calendar. Now it's time to do the calendar. Oh, hooray, let's sing the calendar. Now it's time to do the calendar.
And on the calendar for next week, we have the PGA Tour. They are going to start their Florida run, and they will be playing the Honda Classic, and Justin Thomas is the defending champion in that one. And the Champions Tour will be back in action. They will be playing the Cologuard Classic. Steve Stricker is the 2018 winner of that tournament. And the European Tour is in action. They'll be in the Middle East. They'll be playing the Oman Open. Joost Luton is defending at that particular event. And the LPGA Tour is also in action. Ladies are playing the HSBC Women's World Championship, and Michelle Wie is the defending champion in that event. And that's the schedule for next week. So we'll have the results of all those tournaments right here on Talking Golf with Gary. And that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank my guest, Josh Babbitt, very much for coming on today. Very interesting talk about the equipment, and hope to have him on again later in the year. And I want to thank you all for listening, and don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, wherever you listen to or watch the podcast. And we're now on Spotify as well, so check us out on Spotify if that's your choice for music and podcast. Hit the subscribe button. That helps me grow the show and expand to new listeners. And until next time, remember, as you walk down the fairway of life, you must smell the roses, for you only get to play one round. Have a great week, everybody. I'll see you next time on Talking Golf with Gary.